passe super, l'artiste, super, encore un but sensationnel. That's a brilliant bit of follow-up play by Mahe. Oh my goodness me, what a shot.
Sagosen setter det hen! Han setter den! De er i semifinale igjen!
Hello everyone and welcome to the Uninformed Handball Hour. Chris here, joined by Alex. And for this podcast, we're going to delve in to the life and times of Nikola Karabatic, who in a couple of days' time will enter his final handball tournament as a player. And what an occasion to go out on. A home Olympic Games in Paris 2024, a fitting end to perhaps the most remarkable playing career with some fascinating and impactful stories both on and off the court. And we felt, just like we did with Miguel Hansen a few months ago, that I think we promised it as well on the podcast a few times, Alex, that we were going to do a show dedicated to Karabatic. And here it is. How you doing, Alex?
I'm doing great. It was well overdue. And I think we did talk about it for quite a long time because we did need to give Nikola Karabatic his sign off and really talk about his incredible career. You know, we're talking 3 Olympic golds, 4 World Championship golds, 4 European Championship golds, and a league title in every single season he has competed in, with one asterisk due to a little controversy in his career, which we will get into as well. He's a player who is a proven winner, and actually this Olympics has kind of snuck up on me. You know, for a long time I was thinking, oh, you know, Olympics starting in August. There's time to get some podcasts out, to get the previews out, to talk about Nikola Karabatic. And then here we are, less than a week out from the first game of the championship. But we are bringing you this podcast. We're bringing you this chat about Nikola, and I'm just excited.
Yes. Yeah, you say 5 days before the first game. That is the first men's game. I'm flying, we're recording on Tuesday here. I'm flying out to Paris tomorrow. And on Thursday, the first women's games already. So really, really coming thick and fast, these Olympic Games. And I have a feeling that the handball will get a lot of attention due to France's standing in the handball world, due to the fact that they are going to be in a massive 28,000 seat stadium turned arena in Lille for the quarterfinals onwards, which, yeah, I still haven't quite made my mind up about how I'm feeling about that. I think having almost 2 weeks in Paris before going over to Lille is going to make that a little bit easier to digest. But I'm sure we'll have plenty of time to talk about that as the weeks roll on and we cover these Olympic Games for you. We will have regular podcasts on all of your favorite podcast platforms during the 2.5 weeks, as well as some bonus episodes on our Patreon, which is a great time, if you haven't, to sign up and support us as we strive to give good coverage of these games on the podcast. So head on over to patreon.com/handball hour and support in a multitude of ways you can get involved. And a big question that some people had been asking, Alex, is whether we're going to have a fantasy handball competition on our Discord. H-Balls do have a competition running. Shall we set that up?
Yeah, why not? Let's do it.
Let's do it.
We'll do the classic fantasy league game that's on the Danish website. Join our Patreon, and then you'll get a link to sign up to that game to join our league. And as last time, we will be giving out a prize. A prize that Chris will pick up at the Olympics. How about that? Something that he will steal.
Yeah, we have the Handball Hour mug, and then I will strive to get something while in Paris as well, worthy of the winner of this game. So yeah, join us on Patreon, join our Discord, and join the fantasy handball competition for the next 2.5 weeks. But moving on to Nikola Karabatic, before we speak to our guest who knows this man very well, has been covering him for a long time throughout his career. It's Yann Hildwein from L'Équipe, perhaps the most famous sports publication in France and one of the most famous sports publications in the world. He took the time to chat to us, which we really appreciate, particularly given that the Olympics in his home country start in a couple of days, about his career. But I want to ask you, Alex, before we go into that chat, as somebody, I think, like myself, who has mostly caught the second half of his career, how have you tried to come to terms with the massive scale of his 21 year career?
It's been a little bit overwhelming, and there's definitely the various stages of Nikola Karabatic's career, which we will cover in detail in this chat with Yann. I think he gave a really good impression. I always remember him as a winner. I think the 2012 Olympics is where, I would say my first proper memories of Nikola Karabatic as a player come through, and this kind of determination, this drive. And, if you've ever played handball or any competitive sport, you've probably come against or seen these teams or these players who just refuse to lose. But it's not that they refuse to lose, it's just that they have this winning mentality that brings their whole team up. And for any opposing team, you just look at them and you're like, okay, this team is clearly going to win. I don't know if I'm describing that well, but it's just this pure winning, never say no attitude, which comes through in really clutch moments, which comes through in just the general kind of aura, the way he approaches a game, the way the French team is seen at their highest level. And that's my memory of him. I don't remember him as much as this pure individual talent, which he was. In his early days, he, from the ages of 18 to maybe 26, he really was that kind of Matthias Gitzel-like dominant young breakout star, which is, again, very hard to imagine. But you think about what Nikola Karabatic did at the age of 18 in the Champions League final for Montpellier, which we will get into in a bit more detail, is the equivalent of someone like Petr Čekusa just coming out and scoring 10 goals in a final of a Champions League. That's what he did. This is like this young star. And then he just kept doing that for quite a long time.
I think that's a nice way to lead into our chat. We'll bring in Yann Hildwein and hear what he has to say about the career of Nikola Karabatic. It's a pleasure to have Yann Hildwein on with us from L'Équipe, joining us from Paris to speak a little bit about Nikola Karabatic and his career, which comes to an end after these Olympic Games, just a couple of days before the handball tournament begins. Yann, how are things in France right now?
Well, there's a lot of excitement stepping up. Yesterday, during the official press conferences of the French national team, well, they felt like they were there finally. I think it was Guillaume Gilles, the coach, who said, "We've been hearing about these games for so long, even before Tokyo Olympics, and we are there." And coming into the Olympic Village and playing a few friendly games again in front of the French audience, all of this, they really feel like it's there, and it's really big for them.
The focus of this chat is going to be Nikola Karabatic, and we really want to speak about his career, kind of the full width and breadth of his career today, and hopefully you can fill in some of the details. A lot of listeners to this podcast, and even myself, haven't really watched him for his whole career. He's been at the top of the handball world for 2 decades, over 20 years. So it's really wild, and he's playing at his 6th Olympic Games. He's going to be right up there with some of the kind of highest number of Olympic game athletes, most of which kind of come from the sports like equestrian. So very impressive from Nikola.
Maybe he could do that as well.
Maybe he can try to get another one. He can probably do anything. But let's throw it back to the very beginning. So Nikola Karabatic kind of burst onto the scene as this 18-year-old. But when did he come into your consciousness as a rising player?
He was so great. I mean, my first images was of him as an 18-year-old when he played the final of the EHF Champions League against Pamplona with Montpellier in 2003. And I remember that that first game in Spain. Back then, it was home and away finals. No, there was no Final Four at the time, and they had been blown out. Montpellier had been blown out by Pamplona by 8 goals, and he had scored 10 goals in a game when his team was sinking. It was just nuts, and then there was this crazy back game when Montpellier won it all by winning by 12 goals, and then he appeared on the French national team as well. I remember him at the Olympics in Athens in 2004. And he was already impressive. He was already a major player as an 18-year-old on a team with players who were already world champions, with Thierry Omeyer, with Didier Dinard, with Jackson Richardson, who was the big legend at the time of French handball. And instantly, he was a major player. So yeah, from the beginning, he was already instantly a star.
Is there something in particular that that really defined him in those early years? Because, as you said, he already became a star between the ages of 18 and 20. It was 2007. He picked up his first IHF World Handball Player of the Year. But that kind of player is maybe not who we've seen for the last 5 or 10 years. He's, of course, transformed himself in the modern handball era. But what really defined him as a star in those early years, do you think?
It was his dominance in the physical game. He was just so big, so fast, and also so eager to take on responsibilities, which was amazing for such a young player. And he never hesitated to go and fight, take his chance, and he usually made it. That was what made, and he said it, that he wanted from the start to be the best player in history, and he was starting to do it, but it was on a more individual, in a more individual way. Taking responsibilities, taking the ball, shooting, scoring, also making passes. But he wanted to already lay a mark on the game by himself, even if it's in a team sport. It was an individual star in his very first years.
You say that in the first years he was very individual. Then he kind of developed to be a more rounded player. When did you see that change in his career to become kind of more of a passing player? Was it really kind of his development in the French national team, being surrounded by so many stars, that forced him into that? Or was that always a progression for him?
I think it started when he came back to Montpellier after the years in Kiel. Coming back to his first team as a star a star recruit. He had to be the face of the club, and there was the factor of his brother Luca, whom he really wanted to help and develop. Luca was so young at the time, starting handball again after playing tennis at a high level, and it made him become a lot more collective-minded, Nikola. And the second part of the evolution was the retirement of many of the French big stars after the London Olympics in 2012, when 12 and 13, all the players like Dinard, the Gilles brothers, that left the national team, and it gave even more responsibilities in the way the team played on Nikola, not only scoring. And also it was, I guess, part of his mental evolution as a player. You realize more things that you have to do, and that you don't have to do things on your own.
Probably helps with the longevity as well, if you realize that you've got 6 other players in the court with you.
I really feel like the following years were his most amazing ones. When he was in Barcelona, 2013 to 2015, and the years, the Euro 14 in Denmark, and the Worlds in Qatar in 2015, it was just crazy. He was dominant in attack, in offense, in defense. He was the leader, the leader of the team. He was the soul of the team, and he's considered a legend of Barcelona, even though he only played 2 seasons there. I think it was just crazy, because he had this individual dominance coupled with this collective mind and the way of also organizing the game. In his early years, he was playing as a left back. Then he became a playmaker, which also forced him into being a lot more collective. And I've always been so impressed by the way he started his games by throwing a few passes to his line player, to Luca or other ones like Ludo Fabregas, showing the other team that okay, you want to stop me, but you will have to stop also all of my teammates, because I will give the ball to them.
You mentioned it briefly, but these multiple generations of France and the French national team, and Nikola Karabatic's career has really coincided with this stratospheric rise of the French national team, beginning with that generation that you mentioned, the likes of Dinard, Omeye, really starting in that 2008 Olympics, that cycle between 2008 and 2012, where France won gold in 5 of the 6 available competitions, including European Worlds and Olympics there. And how much of that, peak of success was down to Nikola joining the team versus kind of the general progression of that France golden generation?
I think he was a huge part of it. There were two huge parts. It was Nicolas and Thierry Omeyer. The part taken by the goalkeeper in handball, like in other sports, is huge. And Nicolas was not only an amazing player in defense and offense, but he was also an amazing leader. He was the one who took the whole team on his back when you were in trouble. And I remember that famous image when he was face to face with Ivan Obalic in Croatia in 2009. He was already considered by everyone on the team and outside the team as the figure of the French national team. So yeah, I think his part was huge from the start, from the very first European Championship title in 2006 in Switzerland and Austria, and then in Beijing and all the series way to the London Olympics. Yes, it changed the. Maybe that team without him would have won one or two goals, but staying on the top like you do, you need this kind of champion mentality that Nikola embodies perfectly.
Just after that London Olympics and before this kind of new wave of his playing career you mentioned earlier with the years in Barca, there was another huge incident which I think would be remiss of us not to talk about in September 2012 and his what seemed like the height of his playing career. There was this huge match fixing case that ultimately ended up in a guilty verdict after bets of almost €103,000 on Cesson-Rennes to beat Montpellier while he was a part of the club, from a number of people, including Nicola's girlfriend at the time. What do you recall from that time covering it, and what is your take on that situation?
It was a crazy episode, but not only an episode. It was a whole series. It lasted for 5 years until they eventually accepted the sentence. They have never really accepted being guilty, but they wanted to move on. Actually, I talked about it to him when he announced the end of his career, and he says that it's part of his history, of his story, of his life, and he will make do with it. But he doesn't really want to talk more precisely about this story. It will remain one of the dark parts of his life, of his career, and this is actually the reason why he's not the flag bearer of France at these Olympics. I think he was the favorite. We even made a poll with our readers, and he was by far in the men's section the leader to bear the flag of France. But there was this criterion that you must not have been sentenced in a sports for sports reasons, and it was the case in this affair. So it was impossible for this rule. So it came back actually over 10 years later. Well, I can never say if he actually was guilty. He said he never bet. Well, that's his take. Other players did acknowledge it, like Luca, his brother. He said he didn't. And my opinion is that anyway, if it was wrong, this was wrong, and it was a terrible pain for everyone watching, loving handball. When you talk about handballs, there are still people talking about this. Yes, yeah, but it's a sports when you're a big star, cheats on games, and etc., etc. And so it was wrong. Yeah, obviously. And maybe they should have acknowledged it earlier for it to move, in order to move on sooner. But anyway, I think that's. It was right in the middle of his career. His career was so long that it was right in the middle. He has played 12 years since then. And I think over the course of these last 12 years, he more than made up for this fault, for this mistake, by winning, of course, but by dominating, by playing well, but also by all that he showed on and outside the field, his involvement for environmental issues, his availability with the media, which we really appreciate, his availability with the fans, and all the all the honors he has had over this last year, even in other clubs that he never played. I remember that Szeged is writing an open letter to him. I remember Zagreb giving a huge homage to him after the Champions League game. I think all this shows that he more than made up for what happened in this affair.
But I still kind of wonder, do you have any idea like why he did that? What was the reason for kind of pursuing this match fixing? And it does seem very strange. I agree that his career has moved on, and you know we've kind of moved on to it. But I just never really understood why he would do it at the time. Do you have any thoughts?
I think he's been sentenced to that, so convicted that he took part in a group phenomenon. Like, okay, let's have fun, do that, bet on the collective. What they bet was the collective money that they had collected when you were late at the training.
The fines, yeah.
They had bet that money in order to pay for a trip together on the team to Ibiza. So it was like a team stuff.
Okay.
Of course, it's not the right one to do, but and so basically he's a team guy, and he was on the team, but he took the vast majority of the blame because of his notoriety. And even at the time, Luka now is also a star, but he was not known at all at the time. And so yeah, he was the one who was known from the public, contrary to the other players. So he took the blame, but he was like part of a collective phenomenon.
Okay, so it was really a joke that really got out of hand. That is wild. I didn't quite realize that it was the fines from the team that came down. Doesn't quite, I think it doesn't forgive the whole situation, but it really puts a good context on things. That, you know, probably not the most malicious match fixing we've ever seen in this world, but still something.
And yeah, it's quite interesting, as you said there. We were going to ask about, you know, whether you think this incident has damaged his legacy, but in a way, the flag bearer not being him at these games is the ultimate kind of full circle punishment in a way, because I think we're all aware, anyone who follows the Olympics, just how big an honor that is, particularly for a home games. On another home championship, he'd mentioned in many interviews that the 2017 Home World Championship was really a highlight for him. You know, what are your thoughts on him being the centerpiece of those games? And had you ever seen another event where there was a brighter light shining on a French player than him at those games?
In handball, I don't think you can compare it to anything else. It was big in Athens in 2004 when you knew that it was Jackson Richardson's last games, and he was the flag bearer at the time. But the French handball team was not so good at the time, and they had only one medal. It was in Barcelona 12 years earlier. So no, you could not compare to what's going on right now. Nikola has already 3 Olympic gold medals. If he wins, if he does win a fourth one, he will equal the 2 record men in the Summer Olympics in French sports history. It would be just fantastic. And handball has had a lot more mediatic impact since Athens at the time, especially because of these Olympic successes that he led the team to.
Let's focus on some highlights. I've been going through Nikola Karabatic's career over the last couple of days, kind of trying to find any stats that come up, trying to watch some highlights of matches. And one thing that's quite interesting about Nikola is that rarely was he the top scorer in a championship. Rarely was he the top assist getter in the championship, just, once or twice in his career across so many championships where he was the star, the best player in the world. But one thing that did appear to me is that he's been the top scorer of a lot of finals. There's been many times that he, despite not being the best player, he kind of comes out in really, really big moments. So I don't know, is there any really big moments or games that stand out to you across his career at a club or international level?
Well, the first one was obviously with Montpellier against Pamplona, and then it's tough to point out actually one because not because of his longevity, but also because he's been so collective over the last 15 years of his career. Well, I would. It's not especially an image, but I would point out the Worlds in France in 2017 when he did not score so many goals in the final. I think I don't remember the number exact against the exact number against Norway in the finals, but he was he was bearing France over his shoulders all the way. And it was not known at the time because for security reasons, we could not attend training and all. But after the competition, he revealed that he had hardly practiced all over the tournament because he had this big pain in his right foot that eventually was had to undergo surgery a few years later. And I was like, okay, he did that. Being not able to train for the whole 15 days, it's just crazy. This is one image that I really remember about him. But then I will also, I remember it was not a pass, not a goal. It's the last action of the semi-final of the Olympic Games in Rio in 2016 against Germany. France was leading by 7 at halftime, and then they were starting to drown, and Germany was had equalized at the beginning of the last minute. So we were heading to an extra time, and we were not heading to victory for sure. And Narcisse scored an amazing goal at the last second, qualifying France for the final. But when he told us about this goal, he said, "Okay, we took a timeout, and Nico announced, okay, we'll do this and that." And it was something that the team had not, a combination that the team had not made for maybe 1 or 2 years. And Narcisse was like, "Oh, okay, fine, if you want to do that." And it was actually so different from what we had seen, and it worked. And it was the initiative of Nikola. So yeah, it's being a clutch player.
The stories like that, and some of the names you've mentioned in like the journey along the way, does feel like you could make a Michael Jordan-esque documentary about him. And about all the ups and downs, some of these stories, playing through injury, and something that we noted, about that series is the smaller characters, though, are the people who were playing alongside those who helped to bring France and his club teams to where they were. If you were charged with running a 10-hour series. Yann, on his career, which may well happen at some point. I don't know what L'Équipe's plans are, or French TV's plans, but are there any other names of players or people or stories that you think would, or maybe less talked about, that you would put in there?
You would have to mention his family. We talked about Luca, but you have to talk about his father, Branco, who was the beginner of the dynasty. He was a goalkeeper on the Yugoslav national team in the 1980s. He moved to France, to Strasbourg, and brought his wife and his family. And Nicola had been born in the former Yugoslavia. And he was his role model. And when Branco died of cancer in 2011, he was devastated. Seeing it was a huge turning point in his life. So yeah, that would be a huge character to bring in a big story. You would have to bring in Didier Dinard as well, who's older than Nikola, and when Nikola arrived in Montpellier, he really took him under his wing and helped drove him to practice and all. And the two were very close. They are less close now because they it was a bit complicated at the end of Dinard's tenure on the French national team as a coach. His agent, Baktiong, is a huge character. Also, he's like a second father. Nuka Serdauzic, the coach, he's coach in Kiel, and then later in Paris. Nuka is also from Yugoslav descent and became German. And when Nikola moved to Kiel as a 21-year-old, his father Branco told the coach, "Okay, I'm handing you my son." And Nuka had this phrase that was amazing, and I came back on that night and told my wife, "Okay, I thought I was hiring a new player, and I end up having a new son." And Nuka has really been a second father for Nikola.
Amazing. Yeah, Nikola has always mentioned Nuka as a formative character in his career, and I think he really hit that Kiel period perfectly. You know, Nikola Karabatic going to Kiel, still young, still can play lots of games, doesn't get broken down, play there for 4 years, win everything, move on. He hit that nicely, I think, in his career. Learn a lot. But move on to greater things. But maybe talking about the latter stage of Karabatic's career with France, and to be honest, it's an absolute wonder that he's still around. You know, we're talking about a 40-year-old player playing in, you know, the best international team in the world, one of the best two at least, still holding down a place, keeping pretty amazing players out. He has been through a pretty bad injury in his latter ages. He still sticks around. But how would you see his role over these kind of last 5 years in the French national team, and what will he bring to this Olympics as well?
His role was in the first place as a role model. The biggest example, I think, is Nedim Remili, who was his teammate in Paris for maybe 6 or 7 years, and he was an idol for Remili, and Remili as a right back learned a lot being with him every day, by watching him being so professional, so making so many efforts to keep up, even after being 30, 35, and he took a lot of tips on his way of playing as well. This is also why Remili is now the center back on the French national team, because he learned so much with Nicolas, and he wanted to. And so I think the injuries you mentioned were also important in his handing over responsibilities to other players. It's tough sometimes for younger players to take the responsibilities from the leaders when they are there. And Nicolas was out for a few months when he had his foot surgery. He was out for 6 months when he has his knee surgery, and then he was out again when he had this phlebitis last year after the World Championship in Sweden. And Poland, Sweden. And over the course of these periods, the French team learned to play without him. And it was probably easier for them to learn without him being there. And then when he came back, he was clever enough to realize that he could not take the same role that he had before, and he really fits in this role perfectly. I was impressed by what he brought in Tokyo in 2021, coming back from big knee injury, and he was no longer the leader of the team, but he brought so much stability in defense, in offense, giving the right pass at the right moment, being the wise guy, calming down younger teammates, and all. And he's been doing that ever since. We have so much talent on the French national team. With I mentioned Rémi Dicame, Melvin Richardson, Ludovic Fabregas, and all, and he just adds up to this, bringing huge experience, and he realized that the team can live without him, but they are better with him, obviously.
Where do you think his involvement in handball will be, or will there be an involvement in handball after his playing days come to an end in 2.5 weeks?
It's really tough to know. He's so big that he can not just try to find some coach's job or lead some smaller club. His image is so big that it will be big anyway. Anything he chooses. I think he wants to take a few months for himself to discover how is life without handball, and maybe to think over all this. Handball has been such a big part of his life for 20 years, and I think he would be a great coach because he's he knows the game so well. He's such a big leader and all, but I'm not sure he wants this life. Maybe it would be another possibility. I'm just speculating to take a national team, probably the French national team later, at some point when he's ready to do that, because it does not. It's not so heavy a load an everyday load, but I would mostly see him as a leader, as a president on a big club, or a president maybe on the French Federation, some things like that. If he's, I think he's really definitely intelligent enough for that. He had to take a formation as a club or organization leader for that, but he surely can do that. And maybe it would fit him more like Omeyer. Everybody wanted Omeyer to be a goalkeeper coach, but he wanted more. He wanted power, and he has it on Paris Saint-Germain. Being a leader on a big structure, not only a smaller part. I think this kind of job would fit Nikola more, PSG or whatever. Or the federation, but in the first place he must really know what he wants personally, because I think he can do anything provided he wants it. He will do what's required for that.
Yeah, I can imagine he just has that presence and aura to be the leader. Not just the coach. Let's maybe shift focus to this championship and the French team as a whole. We talked about the atmosphere in Paris at the moment, the excitement that's building, but really, is it starting to get nervy for France? It's a big occasion. Is there a lot of pressure on the men's national team and also the women's national team to bring home the gold?
Obviously, there is a lot of pressure because you are at home, you must win. You're the world champion for the girls, the European champion for the boys, and you are the Olympic champions as well. But that's not what I feel right now. When I saw them yesterday, they were just glad to be there and just enjoying the moment. They will probably they will certainly feel the pressure on Saturday when they face Denmark. Especially since it's Denmark. There's a supremacy issue there as well. But right now, I think they are just enjoying the moment. And if the atmosphere, and if it goes well, especially in this first game, they will be tough to stop.
It feels like a good starting point for them, given how the last championship went, to get a game with Denmark out of the way early. Kind of in the same way with the women, we were joking a couple of weeks ago, Alex and I, they're having their joint training camp and test matches with the Norwegian team, just making themselves better against whatever challenge may come. But both teams have really kind of shown that ease and self-confidence, and that's something that really stood out for me in January with the French team in the semi-final, and their kind of mentality, the way they spoke after winning that semi-final against Sweden. And after the final, that the pressure doesn't really seem to take a hold on them. They really do trust their processes and trust each other.
Yes, obviously. This is something you really feel on both French national teams. The girls used to be more fragile mentally. I really felt that, when it does not go well, they had trouble to overcome these periods. And they have crossed that step over the last years. Winning the Olympic gold was huge for them. It also quietened a lot the coach Olivier Crombols. Now he feels like he doesn't have anything to prove anymore. And the girls as well. I think maybe they needed that to show that they are as good as the guys. And they transformed their offensive play over the last year. It was a demonstration when at the World Championship last year. They have a lot of confidence also because of their defense and their goalkeepers, goaltenders. It's a basis. It's some stability that you can build on. And as far as the guy, I think they have a lot of individual confidence. They have so many great individual players that they trust themselves. They trust each other also because many of them have played together for so long. All this generation that was a European champion and world champion at the under 18, under 19 tournaments. Fabregas, Dicamem, Yann Hildwein, and all. So I agree with you that even though it was so tight, semi-final and final at the European Championship, you always felt like they could make it, and that's what it really transpired in the way they played. They feel like they can make it anyway.
So you're confident in 2 goals?
Yes, I am.
Yes,
I am. Of course, you never know what can happen if the goalkeeper makes like 20 saves or if you have a big injury. But being at home, it brings something. There's something more being at home, and the atmosphere I think will be crazy, especially in Lille with the 28,000 people. It will be huge, and the 2 teams have a lot of confidence, a lot of talent. Yes, but you never know. In Tokyo, everything worked well. If not everything works well this time, you can be beaten. I would be really disappointed. It would be a failure if you don't make a medal for sure, because I think there are. In the men's tournament and the girls' tournament, there are 3 teams above all others, and if you're not one of these 3, it really means that you did something wrong. Then you still can lose a semi-final or a final, But yeah, I'm really confident for the French national teams.
Yann Hildwein, thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure to talk to you about Nikola, and we'll catch you also in Paris and Lille in the days and weeks to come. Take care.
My pleasure. Take care. Bye.
Thank you to Yann for that. That was a lot of fun and very insightful as well. I think we covered a lot of bases there. Not bad going for 40 odd minutes with a 20-year career. But something that you mentioned just before we spoke to Yann about seeing him as a pure winner, and with all the examples that Yann gave there, I mean, that is probably the defining factor when you think about, you know, the discussion, if there is a discussion even anymore, about who the greatest player of all time is in the handball world. Like the modern contemporaries, like Mikkel Hansen. When we did this episode for him, you know, we asked about whether not winning a Champions League would kind of impact his legacy or not. That's not a question you need to have about Nikola Karabatic, because he's literally won it all. He's won that Champions League 3 times. He's won a domestic title almost every year. He's won 11 major titles for France. And he's been at the heart of it in one way or another, whether it's literally dragging them over the line or there as the spiritual leader. And that is a truly unique career.
It is. And it's almost hilarious to think that you can probably ask the question, could he have done just a little bit more with PSG in those last 10 years? But that's ridiculous, that no player can do more than what Nikola has done in his whole career. I do have just one point that I can't not make this, because I still think Karabatic and Hansen are much closer than most people would like to believe, or the general consensus. And a lot of that comes down to this defense point. And yes, Nikola Karabatic has been a very good defender. He's been a very good number 2 defender his whole career, lockdown, one-on-one. But I just don't think defense, as a defensive specialist myself, in many ways, for an individual player, sometimes, in handball, you can hide defense. There is, defensive specialists. There is positions where defense isn't as important. It's not like basketball, where you really can't hide a single player. They're always on and can be attacked. I think it's closer to football or soccer, where, no one talks about Messi's defense. That's slightly more extreme, but I think it's not exactly like basketball. So while it is a absolute feather on Nikola Karabatic's cap, and I do still think he does get edge the greatest of all time conversation for me. It's not as close, but I just wanted to get that off my chest. If I didn't, it'd be it'd come out on another stage in a much more angry way for some reason, because it'd be burning inside of me, and I don't want that to happen.
Fair enough.
Great player.
Point taken. The great thing is about these upcoming games is that Nikola Karabatic and Mikkel Hansen will have at least one more opportunity on Saturday already in the opening game to face off against each other, and we're hoping for the gold medal match as well, that they will have a chance to face off. One last epic battle between these two epic players. We'll cover that throughout the 2.5 weeks as promised on the podcast. Both free episodes for all of you wherever you listen to your podcast, as well as bonus ones from the heart of the matter in Paris and Lille, with me on site there, and Alex up at all hours watching the games over in Boston. Which is, as we all know, is Alex's favorite thing to do, is to be up at 5 o'clock in the morning watching games, and to have it all done by lunchtime. But we'll be covering that throughout the 2 weeks, so make sure to follow us, and if you can, support us on patreon.com/handball hour. And our next podcast will be a quick look through the 2 tournaments as well, in a preview coming up just before the tournament starts. So until then, from Alex and myself, it's goodbye.